Oh.
It felt pretty like seamless tonight. So I can actually hear your voice pretty well through here. So try talking so I can make sure.
Yes. So I am talking. Talking is now. Talking.
It's pretty.
Test.
It's okay. Let me try switching some of the settings and then see if that helps. Try.
Test.
That's a lot worse.
Test.
Let me try switching the gain. Try that.
Test.
There we go.
Test.
Way better.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Do you want to push it back now towards you? So it's in the middle?
I'll put it a little bit, but
Gotcha.
I want to make sure because
Yes.
they could hear me fine.
Yes.
For the most part last time. Maybe there was a few sections where like the music just kind of
Drowned it out.
Yeah, drowned everything out. Where the music like really hit its peaks.
Yes.
But hopefully that's not the case.
But it gets incrementally better each
Yes.
time. Just 1% better.
1% better.
Yes.
So that's kind of like our philosophy right now is just 1% better. And I think that really does work. When you try to take on too much all at once, it can be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can just become 1% better over time, that has a compounding effect.
Yes.
And eventually you're like a completely different person. Like, yeah, not the same at all. And we're definitely going to be experiencing that on this journey.
Yes.
And your mom commented, test. Let's go.
Let's go. So she's watching.
Yeah. Hey, great to see you, Janelle. I'm
Let's
so happy
go.
you're here watching this with us and just hanging out.
I'm so happy she gets to see us have our deep, thoughtful conversations.
Isn't it fun?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing too is like we can get other people in on this too.
Yes. It can start with family. It can start with friends.
Family. Yes, exactly.
And then it pushes outward.
Exactly. Yeah. And me and Pat were actually talking about, obviously we want to produce really good quality content and give people things worth the money. But he was thinking about kind of like an art blog, right? Through Patreon at some point?
Yes. So I think it's just smart.
Elite.
Welcome, Elite.
Oh my gosh, we love you guys. Yeah, so go ahead and talk about that.
So I was thinking, I think it's just smart in general to have things that can be in the background that help elevate you to your goals. So like one of that is like obviously financial.
Yes.
Like help is always like appreciated.
Exactly.
And it's like always needed in this world.
Yes.
So like I'm gonna set up a Patreon. I did set it up, but I'm gonna verify all the email and do the pictures and the tiers and stuff. But man, if you could just do $1 a month, and get friends and family to help with that,
and the majority of people can help with $1.
and that
would support you. That'd be enough to let you pursue what you have always been kind of destined to do, which is art. And you've always known that art is your passion and what you want to do with your life. And I mean, if family and friends can just give like $1 a month, and we get 1,000 people to do that, then that's that will take care of you for the beginning process.
That is, and I feel like you can actually support yourself on fewer subscribers than you think. Yeah. Like you don't have to have millions of subscribers to support yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can really
leverage
it in a good positive way.
That's just a community.
Yes.
And there's like small towns out there with only a few 1,000 people or even 100,000, and like they still have an economy. They still are trading and buying and bartering, and that's what it's all about,
Exactly.
And supporting people.
Yes.
Like I think what you do is so unique, and you give a lot back with your pieces that touch on like spirituality, on Christ, on your journey in life, and also just the beautiful portrait art you do.
Thank you, bro.
It's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, if you haven't checked out Patty's art, where's the best place everyone can check that out?
Oh, definitely Instagram. My YouTube and my TikTok are kind of, I would say, a little bit disjointed at the moment, but they don't have the same name. But my Instagram is it's either _ Patrick _ Callaway or Patrick _ Callaway _.
Okay.
It has 2 underscores in there somewhere.
Right.
But if you can find Patrick Callaway and see a painting as a profile photo on Instagram, that's definitely mine. And I have my link tree on there with my Etsy shop and all that nice stuff. My YouTube link to it. So yeah, come and support the bro.
Yeah. Well, and you also have all your other social medias. Like he has a YouTube channel. He has an Instagram. He has, which you already mentioned, but you have TikTok. So like he's uploading really good, high quality videos all the time, showing off his art, teaching concepts of art, and he actually teaches classes in real life. Yeah. And are you still looking for students for your classes?
Right now I'm playing it by ear. So I am that. I want to be that person that has the free time and opportunity to teach when someone needs it.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily pursuing that.
Yes.
But like, I love teaching.
Yes.
So I would love to help teach people like that are more than willing to want to be taught.
Right. And maybe even, of course you can learn through his video series on YouTube, which is awesome. So he has a lot of free resources for artists that want to learn, but he's worked with my niece specifically, and she's become a phenomenal oil painter through his tutelage, and it's really amazing the kind of work he can help you reach, like the levels he's able to help people reach.
Well, I kind of want to touch on that because it's kind of a philosophy. It's less about motor function skills with your hands and painting and more about seeing things.
Yes. Like
seeing things correctly or like translating that. Like I could see people have the argument to it can be a motor skill thing, translating it from vision to canvas. But if you can really see what you're looking at and like accurately see it, the colors, you can fix those bits that are a little off. Yeah, and and just keep attacking the painting until it becomes this beautiful like render of what you want it to be, whether it be what you're looking at or like a concept. Like it all starts with an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in motor skills, I feel like matter a lot less the bigger the portrait is. Yes. So like if you're trying to do really high detailed work on a piece of paper, then you're limited with the amount of space you need in order to get those details onto the frame. Yes. But if you do have some like limitations, you can always make the canvas you're working on bigger. Yes. And therefore you have a lot more leeway in order to put down those images that are in your mind onto the portrait.
Yes. Well, and on top of that, like you're very right. Like the smaller, the harder it is to get some of that fine detail. Like if you have like a shake but I will say, there are people that draw so much detail in like beautiful drawings, beautiful like watercolor paintings that have like no arms or they're paralyzed and they literally paint like holding the paintbrush in their mouths. Yes. Which is like insane. It's crazy. Amazing. Yeah. That what people can do to overcome to get a vision onto a canvas. Yeah. And I find that so inspiring. In fact, I'm getting like goosebumps from it.
It's super inspiring. When someone has a limitation and decides to overcome that limitation, because someone, again, with like no arms, for instance, could immediately be like, well, I'll never be an artist. Yeah. But when you're like, hey, I want to do that and I'm going to do that, that just shows how powerful a human's will is. Yes. And like we can manifest beautiful things that are real things into this world. We talked about that last episode too.
Yeah. Oh, especially like in coming back to the seeing things properly when you're painting, like it all comes with framework as well. Your framework influences your perception. So if you feel like you're in a hostile environment or a calm environment, or like a neutral environment, it all changes like how you perceive like the apple that's sitting on the table. You know,
can you go into a little more detail on what you mean by that and how the actual portrait would end up if you were like in, let's just say, a hostile versus a loving environment?
Yeah, so it's so nuanced. So it's not necessarily something that you consciously do. It's something that shows through in the final piece of like, say it's a picture that has a strong emotional attachment to it, that will have, that usually has a very positive outcome. Like, it usually, the render is more pleasing to the eye, if that makes sense. If you are in, I would say, strong emotional connection in a positive way, usually makes the painting look like just that much better. But if it's, I would say, if you have an uneasy feeling about it, it's, for me personally, it's hard to trudge through a painting that I have an uneasy feeling about, and I usually abandon it and just like paint over it eventually until I get inspired by something, a better idea.
And that makes sense, because your emotions are directly tied to you as an individual. So as you're working with this this tool that's coming out of you, the feeling that you're experiencing actually manages in a very subtle way to work its way into that manifestation that you're putting onto a page.
Yes. And no, you're exactly right. I'm thinking about the manifestation, like the wordage being used, because like you are kind of manifesting it, but it's less of like I'm willing my perfect vision onto this canvas.
No,
there's always a translation process.
There is a translation process for sure. Yeah, like when you are, I mean, you could potentially get the perfect image, but it would take forever.
It would.
And so you're always going to have to make trade-offs.
Yes.
And then, how does this look? Because there's a difference between what we can do in our mind and how things are captured in our mind versus the real world. And I think that leads to kind of like what is actually true in the real world. So as you're translating from your mind to the real world, you actually see how certain things look, and it comes into the aspect of this reality and how things actually need to be.
Yes. Oh, I 100% agree. And on that note, it reminds me of the reality that you kind of create with on the canvas is not necessarily a false reality, because it's like what you perceived and then translated through your hand onto the canvas. It's just a very stylized reality.
Yes.
And I really like the fact that that's the case, because if we could create like things like just completely from our head, exactly how we think, there would be, it wouldn't be the same.
No.
And
there's a bit of magic that happens between the interplay of reality and mentality.
Yes. And yeah, exactly. I like the word, like this translation between the mind and the, because it again, it all starts with the idea. It all starts with the vision of what you want to do with an image.
Right.
Like, we're created in the image of God.
Right.
Like, which is very
But
fitting.
we're not God.
We're not God.
Yeah.
We are not God, but we're created in the image of God.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful. And in this, we can also say that the painting is an image of what you're looking at. It is not what you're looking at, but it is an image.
Yeah.
So it's not as true to the reality, but it is a perception of the reality.
Yes. Especially when you're taking from like real life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it gets even cooler when you're trying to get into conceptual stuff, because it never looks exactly how you think of it. Like, if you, because there's emotional attachments to different ideas
Yeah.
and different focal points, and they simmer out as you paint because that novelty wears off, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like so a lot of times my paintings take on this transformative process from beginning to end because my interest changes as I paint. The novelty of like that image wears off, and then I come up with a new novelty image,
and it becomes even better.
Yes, and it becomes even better. Exactly. Yeah.
I think that it occurs in a lot of like creative fields.
Yep.
Like as you're writing or working on a painting, you're starting to see how things are shaping, and your brain is able to be like, well, actually, I see this from a different angle now.
Yes.
And once you see it at that different angle, you're able to add a bit more of like this certain newness to it, like you were saying.
A certain newness. Yeah, I like that. You're painting over the old paint, but that old paint sometimes shows through and adds an element of randomness to it, and like it's just a beautiful like. I mean, that's why I love oil painting, because it's a craft that has an element of controlled randomness to it, where you can make just beautiful renders and beautiful paintings, and I love it.
So what is the process with oil painting? Do you start with like a sketch onto your canvas and then you go in with that, or do you just start adding different tones and then slowly build off of those tones?
I started in several different ways, and people will disagree with me with this, but if you're doing, I think it just depends on the angle of it. So, and a lot of times I don't start with an angle, but when I do, that really influences how I started off. Like, say it's a commission piece, and it's got to be close knit and like kind of put together in a sense, in a lot of ways, but with it in a timely fashion. I always put an underpainting first, and then I do a drawing with the brush with a different color, like a darker color, something that just pops on the wash that I do for the background, and that gives a really pleasing look to a commission piece because it looks well put together, it looks rendered, it looks like the photo or image that the person wants. But on the other hand, with like a more personal piece, I like to go into different theories of things, like texture. I like to really stretch myself to see what does what. It's like an experiment. And if it comes out cool, great, I have a cool painting that I can reference to, like, oh, I did that technique. But if it doesn't, I can paint over it. And in fact, that's another technique, painting over old paintings. An old painting is never worthless. You can just paint over it and have this amazing like background that like shines through it, and you can't get a background like that anywhere else, because it was a vision. I wouldn't even say a failed vision, but like a vision that I didn't deem worthy.
Right. Yeah. It was a building block.
It was a building block. It wasn't worthy as a finished piece, but it became worthy as a foundation.
Also, Janelle Calloway waved.
Let's go.
I believe that's a wave, or it might be a hands up. Does she have a question? I'm not quite sure.
I think it's a wave.
Hey, we're waving back.
We're waving back.
Just adding to what you were saying about just the process and the building off of layers. I thought the image of the fact that you do like a pre-painting before adding the line work through different color was really pretty, because it's almost like you're adding like flesh onto this body.
Yeah. I can see that.
Like it's almost like you're actually working in a 3D style, even though you're limited to a 2D canvas. So that's really cool. I like that process.
You actually have expanded my mind vocabulary on that now. Like that's like a cool thought process that I haven't delved into, but it's very kind of similar. Like it is like a 3D, like I'm kind of working in 3D on a 2D surface. And to go back to the beginnings of a painting, sometimes I do work with the dark tones and the light tones and just keep building up back and forth.
Yeah.
I just keep going dark tone, light tone, mid tone, and then I correct.
Yes.
So a painting is all about correcting. Like you never get it the first try.
Yeah.
You're constantly correcting, and when you get to a point where you just like can't find any more things to correct, you're done. And that's how it is for most paintings. It depends on your goal, of course,
right.
with it.
And so with the constant corrections that are associated with that, sorry about that, the cats often do like little arguments. They never really hurt each other, so don't worry, you guys. But yeah, they do argue quite a bit. Yeah. As far as the constant corrections, as an artist, how do you feel about it? Because I bet there's kind of a different representation of how you feel about a painting not being exactly where you want it compared to an average person. Because when someone who's new to art probably makes a mistake, they probably are like, oh my gosh, I made a mistake. Yeah. It's ruined. But I'm sure you feel completely different. So can you share your perspective?
Yeah. I'd say to that artist that may feel that way with where it's a one and done type of mistake. It's one and done in the sense that you can't take that specific paintbrush off the canvas, but it's not one and done with the potential. Like that little paintbrush can become a very interesting texture for, like, say it was an accidental paintbrush, but it turned into like a tree trunk, and it's like a landscape that you're working on, and it just has that nice look to it. It becomes a happy accident, as Bob Ross says.
I was thinking the same thing.
And again, with oil paint in particular, you can always paint over top of it, and sometimes you have to let it dry, or if you don't want to let it dry, scrape at it a little bit and put a nice fresh layer of what you want to put on, and it's so forgiving. I think oil paint is probably the most forgiving medium. It's more, in my opinion, more forgiving than acrylic, more forgiving than watercolor, obviously. Watercolor is probably the least forgiving of the
art.
If you put one dark color on there, it's done, because you can't undarken that. You're painting backwards with watercolor, essentially.
So you would have to put like a new page down or just start over.
Yes, if you accidentally, like if you're doing a beautiful landscape and you put well, there's ways to kind of correct it, but it's spotty. Like you could wet a paper towel and kind of dab at it and try to lift up some of that paint, but you can only do that so much.
Maybe turn it into a mixed medium paint?
Again, it doesn't end the potential. So you could turn that watercolor into a mixed media painting if it fails. Like, there's never really a failed painting. It's more of like, how far do you want to take this thing? Yeah. Which I like.
That's super, super interesting. And I love the fact that we're really like diving into a topic that you're super knowledgeable about. Is there any pieces of like artistic visions that you're working on right now that you want to share with our audiences?
So I've been working on more storytelling pieces, very biblical, like stories. I've been trying to have very emotionally story-driven, big pieces, like all that into one. Like, I'm working on bigger canvas. I'm taking time to actually create some kind of narrative with the painting. It's kind of a mix between like an impressionistic / graphic design / comic book, like concept art. Yeah. Because it's got a lot of those elements, because I want, in fact, some of those contradict in a sense, but they make cool outcomes. So, and I'll explain this. So, like, the reason they contradict is Impressionism, you get an impression of things. Yes. So, like, you don't necessarily put a brushstroke down and be like, this brushstroke is that thing. Like, this is a pole. It's more like you do the brushstrokes that kind of indicate the pole. That's impressionistic. Yeah. And but with concept art, it's, if I'm drawing a line here, that line means something. Yes. Like, that line means that's a crack in the wall. So I'm just meshing my favorite style of impressionism with like concept art and biblical themes. So the next painting I'm going to be working on is the prodigal son.
Okay, yeah.
Of a son coming to a father after being like spending his inheritance, and the father coming open arms with them. So that's the next painting I'm going to be working on, and I'm excited about that.
Dude, that's going to be gorgeous. I mean, and that's such a powerful story of just like, no matter what, family's there to welcome you back with open arms. Amen, that you're still loved by your father.
Yes.
You know, like
it's never too late to go back to him.
It's never too late. And that's a good father. You know, a lot of people are missing a father like that in their daily life. So them seeing your painting, maybe, you know, it shows them what a good father is. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yes, that's the goal.
Dude. Yeah, I love that we've also started this podcast recently because it just gives us another medium to constantly like craft and get better at.
Yes. Well, we've already one-upped it from yesterday because we've got one technical things can always be upped.
Yes.
Which we worked on that today. But two, our sharpening of each other's speeches.
Yes.
Or each other's like vocabulary.
Yes.
Is like very present in these. Like there's a sharpening that is being had between us, and it's like helping me personally become more fluent and more thoughtful in my vocabulary. There's always going to be that moment where you might need to think, but it's, do I use an or do I use a silence?
Yeah.
So it's forcing me to really think about these things.
Yeah. Well, I think, definitely as we create a more dynamic internet presence, that we're going to get just better and dialed in on each of these like little details. Also, thank God for editing for like shorts because we can remove some of that. So.
Oh, exactly. Yes.
Oh, Elite found your paintings on Instagram.
Let's go, Elite. Thank you.
Yeah, they're gorgeous, aren't they? Like, and Patty's just amazing. Oh, your mom said something as well. She says, "What biblical art have you done?"
Oh yeah, I am happy to answer that. I've done the crucifixion, so Christ on the cross with the Roman soldiers on the path, and it's got the King of the Jews over top of him with light hitting the top of the crucifix, and that painting actually sold.
Let's go.
It was like 2 weeks ago now, right?
Yeah. How much did you end up?
$1,200.
Dude, that's amazing. Oh my gosh.
It was a blessing.
Wow.
It was such a blessing to sell that, and it blessed her as well because the imagery was very powerful.
Yeah. And do you do like payment plans with your paintings, or is it?
So the only time I ever do anything that's kind of like a payment plan is if I do commission work. I do 50% up front, and then 50% when I'm done. Makes sense. Yeah. That's to safeguard both parties in a sense. Yeah. Because if they end up not liking it, hey, I got 50% of the thing. If they don't want to pick it up for whatever reason, it safeguards that. Yeah. Because I spend a lot of time on those paintings.
Oh, Elite said, your paintings are amazing.
Oh, thanks, Elite.
Elite's such a good person. Like, Elite, I love Elite. Awesome. Yeah. I think we're really. Limitless also said hi.
Let's go.
I didn't realize that Limitless was here. Thank you, Limitless.
Limitless, nice to see you.
That's such a cool name.
Yeah. That is awesome.
But no, I feel blessed with the people we've been able to make online. We've met some really neat and cool people, and at some point we need to do like a get together. I think that would be really cool.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
We can encourage each other.
Yes. Well, I even had a friend today that I initially met him online, and we've met in real life, and he messaged me today and he was like, dude, can we talk? I want to figure out how to turn my online presence and just what I'm doing into something that actually generates cash. So we're going to go over some real ideas.
Yeah.
And also just, we'll see what he's willing to do, because I think there's a willingness in some people for certain tasks, right? Yep. And so like you can choose how you make money, but some people are just really destined for certain things.
Yes.
So they're going to pursue that one thing that they feel, this is what I needed to be doing.
Yes.
And that's not everyone, and not everyone is in the position to do that.
Yeah.
But we'll see what kind of position he's in.
Yes.
What he's willing to do.
Yes.
And what he wants to do, and
yes.
try to like grind down what is realistic.
That's perfect, bro.
Yeah.
Like, that is some wisdom there.
Yeah. Well, and if I can ever help anyone, I always want to. And
yes.
Like we're both like that 100%.
Yes.
We legitimately want to see people thrive as much as we do, if not more.
Yes.
Yeah. And we want to constantly push ourselves to be better too. It's that 1% like transformation.
Yes.
All the time. Yeah.
Uplifting each other to higher heights, and
yes.
And that's encourage each other, not pull each other down.
Yes.
It's not a hierarchy game.
It's not a hierarchy game.
It's you're my brother or sister, and we have a trust.
Yes.
That in a bond.
Yes.
And that's sacred.
Yes.
And we want to uplift each other's life.
Exactly. And anything we can do to do that, like let's go.
Yes.
Let's make this happen.
Yes.
And there's so many amazing people that have done wonderful things for me that I really want to repay in my life. So, at some point I am looking forward to the day where I can do more than just sustain my own standard of living.
Yes.
But also like really do something nice for all those people.
Yeah.
That's the long-term goal.
Yep.
And I mean, it just comes back to just wanting to do good to the people in your network and the people close to you, and showing love in the real world.
Yeah. That's a great goal. To be blessed so you can bless others.
Yeah, no, I legitimately, because like there's been some amazing people in my life that have done so much, and I like, even going back years and years and years ago, I think about people who have taken care of me, and yes. I'm like, one day I want to do something for you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Pay it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're also moving towards a good future. I truly believe that. So if we can make this world a little bit more like heaven before
yes.
Things go too crazy, I
yes.
think that's what we need to do.
100%.
Yep.
I love that so much. Dude, I love you, man.
Dude, I love you too. And we love you guys.
Yeah, we love you guys. And I love this dynamic too, because these thoughts aren't something we're just saying because we're live streaming.
Yeah.
Like, we have these deep conversations constantly.
Yeah.
Like,
that's why we're live streaming. It's like a reverse reason. Like, we're not like trying to come up with and also we haven't been planning these topics out.
Yeah.
I think maybe at some point we will plan out a topic to talk about, and maybe you guys can also suggest topics to us.
Yes.
But like, we're really just talking how we normally talk
yes.
on a daily basis when we're hanging out,
yes.
Obviously we're keeping certain levels of barriers up,
yes.
but that's just because we don't know who's going to be listening to this in the future.
Yes.
But like this is genuinely us.
Yes, genuinely us. Yes. And just thankful for this whole like bubble of whatever this is. We got the mic, we got the computer, we got the people.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
And we've been wanting to do a podcast for a long time.
Yes.
Because it just felt like something that would like naturally play into our strengths, and I'm so happy we're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
It's something I've wanted personally to really push for a long time. And I also want to get like some fascinating people in here with us to have conversations with, to really dive deeply into certain topics and just help piece together a little bit of the world. Again, I think we have to question our own narratives and question the world around us. And the easiest way to do that is through talking, through citations, through constantly refining. Yes. And if you do that, you're going to move a little closer to truth every day.
Yep. Very well said, brother.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I was going to bring up the topic of like how you can really like with willpower and like grace and forgiveness, you can really improve like physical elements of your life.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Which I just think is awesome.
Yeah.
Like it can turn your condition from really bad if you're going the opposite extreme.
Yes.
Or it can do it to the best possible scenario for that situation. And absolutely. I just wanted to bring that up because that was like on our hearts earlier.
100%. Well, I think it's amazing the amount of choice that we are naturally given, and that is choice is just will, right? So like there are two terms that can be flip-flopped, you know, and you can actually affect your mentality with choice. You can affect your movement with choice. You can affect your surroundings with choice. So it's freedom in a very real sense, and that's something that if you believe in a God, in which we do, that you believe has been purposely put into this world. So there is a freedom of action, a freedom of thought, a freedom of motion, and of location, all given to you. It's just a matter of what you're willing to take and what you're willing to work with. You know.
Yep.
I mean, and a lot of people become agnostic or like in disbelief of their own ability to choose.
Yes.
You know, and they find themselves a victim of circumstance rather than a creator of circumstance.
Oh yeah. Well, just saying that reminds me of like taking 100% responsibility of everything that happens in your life, even if it really isn't something that you affected.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it puts the power back into your wheelhouse.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if like it's something like a ball falls off like a table and hits you or something, and it's like it didn't come from you, but you like if you take responsibility for it in some way, shape, or form, like it gives you the power to try to change it for the better, or try to flip it into a positive, or it gives you the power, like to, instead of like just being agnostic about it and like leaving it up to like chance.
Yeah, like I am a result of the universe rather than I am a actor in the universe.
Yes.
And the crazy thing about that is they showed that people with higher IQs or that perform better in IQ tests and also in just like life believe that they can make actionable changes in the world. So like a part of reaching over that gap is to believe that you can reach over the gap.
Yes.
You know,
it's beautiful. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And you know, like I am always trying to we talked about this yesterday, but if you want something or want to create something, you need some kind of element in your reality that you've observed or come in contact with in order for that thought to initially manifest.
Yes.
And in order to have a thought outside of what you physically see or can actualize through environmental things that you've absorbed, you have to go outside of this reality. And that means you have to placate to the fact that there is something outside of this reality.
Yes.
And that's where really unique thoughts start coming in. You become a conduit rather than just a receiver.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like a conduit that it's like a how do you say it? It's like a step ladder, or it's like it doesn't just stop at you.
Yes. Yeah. And that's when things really start getting interesting as far as perception and interaction and just the things that go on between individuals. And,
yes.
And it's also great because it's very healing.
Yeah.
There's a goodness to it, as there is with anything that happens to be true.
Yes.
Yep.
And one thing I do want to touch up on is like, and this is finding truth. But you were talking earlier with pulling on a thread and following it.
Yes.
So you find a thread that's very intriguing, and you just pull on it and follow it until it unravels and see where it heads. And I find that really intriguing because that's not how I work as much, but I know that's how you work.
Yes.
And it's like we still riff off of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yes. So I'm opening a drink for the wife. There you go, love.
You spilled it all over
It's
yourself.
just a tiny drop. I think if I find something or a connection that I think is, like you said, interesting, or something I think will add to or change my opinions even, then I'll pull on it.
Yes.
And let it, and see it. Okay, where does this lead? Is this actually a credible idea, or is it something that's completely fictitious? And and I think you have to constantly do that. If you get too locked into a specific dogma, you lose the ability to find real truth. Because again, even let's just say even in Christianity, right? There's tons of differences. So if you decide that I am, let's use a Presbyterian, right? And you're like, okay, I'm a Presbyterian, and we have all the answers, black and white.
Yes.
And you have to do it, everything that we do, exactly the same way. Otherwise, you're not really a Christian.
Yeah.
You're not pursuing truth. You're not figuring out anything.
Yes.
Then you're just a person that's stuck in dogma. Same with the Pharisees. They were stuck in dogma. They weren't after true truth. So when Jesus came, they were like, no, we choose our dogma over salvation. Yeah.
And that actually reminds me, not only did they choose their dogma over salvation, they like the Gentiles like were wanting that salvation. Yeah. And like the people that
they wanted truth.
And the people that Jesus came for rejected him and just like didn't want it. Yeah. But it just goes to show how good God's mercy and grace is. Like his grace extends like to people that want it. People that need it. And
exactly. And, we're not trying to turn this whole podcast into necessarily like theological discussions every week. We want everyone to feel welcome here and enjoy what we're talking about. But we have a very real interplay in our lives of following the truth. And we want to give our perspectives on things. And we hope you guys also give your perspectives on things. Because we're never going to put you down, but we truly believe, again, questioning our own dogma, right? Because if it's true, it will stand. Yes. And if it's not true, it will crumble under the weight of observation and of rhetoric and of questioning, right? Yes. So always feel free to question us. We're never going to get mad about it. We love you guys. You guys are amazing. And we hope you also don't feel like we're antagonizing you, because we're not trying to. We're just trying to express our own point of view.
Yes.
And to share love in this world.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. And I think that helps with a lot of issues, just generally speaking. Like, if you're constantly just reviewing what's in your own mind and what is actually like the deepest citation, then you get closer to real truth. And the thing with Christianity is it comes from obviously Judaism, and Judaism goes back as like one of the oldest religions in recorded history, you know, and even and like it's even older than Hinduism potentially.
Yes.
You know? Because they had an oral tradition of Judaism. So like a lot of people will talk about how new Christianity is to the field, which it is, but it's, if you're truly being like giving a good faith argument, you're not just including Christianity, you're including Judaism.
Yes.
Because the belief with Christianity is that it's just a fulfillment of Scripture based off of the Jewish principles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's another topic that maybe one of these podcasts we should get into is like, I like talking about the old languages and the old stories.
Yes.
Like, we should definitely one day talk about the book. Is it Gilgamesh?
Yeah. We definitely want to talk about Gilgamesh and some of the ancient writings, Sumerian writings that are available to us that we've uncovered historically.
Yes.
And I think that would be super interesting. And we also, me and Pat are also going to be diving like deeper into philosophy in general. So we'll be sharing what we're learning as we're broadening our own understanding and perspectives in the world. And we're going to try to really just analyze everything as deeply as possible.
It's important.
Yeah.
Like, because again, like you said, the truth has to stand against truth, and like if that truth crumbles, like you know that the truth is like
well, it either, if your idea crumbles under the weight of another idea, then it's either wrong or it needs to evolve. Right? So like it's either being misconstrued from you, and you need to figure out how to present it correctly, or it's just wrong and you need to reevaluate where you stand. And so if we constantly strive for that, then we're always going to be truthful when interacting with others and interacting with ourselves, and being honest with ourselves is so important.
Yep. In fact, that's one thing I say all the time to myself is like, what is honest? Like I gotta get to the root, because like if you're not being honest with yourself,
everything's off base.
Yes, everything is off base. It's like you can deceive others, but you can also deceive yourself. Which is scary to think about.
And that's why if you come to the realization that you might be deceiving yourself, and you keep a fluctuation within that, and say the main goal is just to aim towards the truth, and I'm flexible within what I'm thinking, then it's far harder to deceive yourself, because you're always moving from one plane to another. You know, it's a constant thing, and it also helps us just transform generally, like we've been talking about tonight. A slow transformation of 1% into who we are going to be in the future rather than who we are now. We should always be striving for that, because we're always going to have more information and look at things differently as we move into the future. And it's good to not be stagnant. We're made to be like rivers, not these still statues. You know, we were made to move, not to crumble and dissolve.
Like, very well said, man. Like with the statue analogy, I like the crumble. We're made to move, not crumble. And it was just it was beautiful how you said it.
Well, I mean,
statue.
What happens when you just stand still and don't move? But your whole body starts to like disintegrate. It really does. It starts to fight against you. You know, we even talked about how those manga artists have like really short life expectancy.
Yes.
They're always sitting and they're not exercising.
Yep.
And same with people that just, are just inactive in general.
Yep.
If you aren't moving, if you aren't living, life chooses life.
Yes.
And death chooses death.
Yes.
And so if you want, like, you're going to be at your stillest when you're in the ground.
Yeah.
And you're going to be at your most alive in this moment. So, like, live brightly.
Live brightly. I like it. And I had a comment about the still water, like, like the flowing water and the still water. I had a riff on that, which was which is evading me at the moment, but it'll come back.
Well, I mean, even for water to have life in it, it needs to be moving.
Yes.
So, like, even if you have a pond put in, you need a filtration system that constantly is moving the water.
Yes.
In order for it to not be stagnant.
Yeah, because still water's dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
I like, it's got the bacteria. And
bacteria growth starts, and then it just, it doesn't. It's no longer welcoming to life, generally speaking.
Yeah, so that flowing water is actually important. If you look at literally ponds and flowing water. Yeah.
Well, and that, even if we're looking at it from a biblical perspective, it's like Jesus says, "I am the living water."
Yes.
So like, you want to be in that living water that's moving, that's giving life.
Yes. 100%, man.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious on how much time we have on the podcast.
We probably have been doing a pretty long podcast. If you want to go ahead and call it for tonight, then we can kind of wrap up.
I think so.
Okay.
Because we got a lot of meaty stuff today. And
I 100% agree. Let's just ask the audience if there's anything that they want us to touch on before we leave. And then let's both have a second to sign out.
Yes.
Do you guys have anything you want us to touch on before we end the broadcast? And also, thank you guys for coming. You guys are amazing. Elite, Janelle, Limitless. Truly, we're so thankful for you guys being here. All right. I know there's a bit of a time delay a lot of times, so we'll give it like 10 seconds for a response. So I'm going to slowly count down now. But 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Is there any last words you want to say?
The last words I want to say is thank you, for being my brother. Thank you for people watching and observing just observing our thoughts, our flowing thoughts. And I think a goal for me in these conversations is to, like you said, put my ideas against the truth.
Yes.
And see if it crumbles or what it does against it, or it flourishes.
Because if your idea truly bashes up against another idea and it wins and it expands, it grows.
Yes.
And then if you constantly let it do that, and it constantly wins over and over and over again, then guess what happens? Every other idea begins to wither in the light of that idea.
Yes. And that's all I have to say with that closing thought. And I just appreciate this. This is awesome.
I'm going to make mine kind of concise. Let truth, liberty, and love guide all of our steps. Let God's will prevail, and just know that we love you guys, that you have so much purpose in this world, that you have a uniqueness and an essence that makes you special.
Yes.
And you have, what's the thing I always would say about value? You have an inherited.
You have an inherent value.
You have an inherent
intrinsic value.
You have an intrinsic value here on Earth.
Yes.
And never forget that. Like, you are valuable just by
Yes.
existing. You are this observer in this cosmos,
Yes.
observing things that are happening. And this might be the only place that this is happening on.
Yeah.
This little blue planet called Earth
Yeah.
might have the only observers in the
Yeah.
entire universe.
Yes.
So let's continue to observe, continue to love, and continue to make this world a better place. See you guys.
Let's go. See ya.